Well, we're here, episode 10. 10 episodes already. And my hair and makeup are fresh for you. If you're watching on YouTube, it almost wasn't that way. I really started rationalizing, you know, neither one of my YouTube subscribers will really care if my hair is curled and whether I'm wearing makeup or not. But then I realized that I had not showered in 3 days. And I won't tell you how long it had been since I had washed my hair or shaved my legs, so you wouldn't have known the difference, but I know. All right, I fangirled over today's guest because I have admired her creativity, her entrepreneurship, her leadership in the cheerleading space. And she's basically one of the founding fathers or mothers, as it were, of All-Star Cheerleading. Kristen Rosario is the co-founder and one of the coaches at Gun Allstars. It was one of the first All-Star gyms in the country, in the world, and I had the pleasure of speaking with her. We talk about the famous teams that she coaches, including TGLC, how she and her husband have created a culture of creativity and family at their gym, what trusting the process means to her, and what a parent should be looking for in a coach and how we can build successful and healthy relationships with our kids' coaches. I do want to give a little bit of an editorial note here and let you know that we did this interview long before the Rockstar Cheer allegations. And so we don't even cover that. Not that I think we would have or that she would have commented, but if you are looking for her perspective, this conversation happened months before all of that went down. In case you don't already know, there's lots of places for us to hang out and connect online. So I wanted to tell you about them really quick. If you go to Facebook, you can find us in the Cheer Mom Hive. Just search for the Cheer Mom Hive in Facebook. It's a private group. You can also find all kinds of tips and resources at thecheermomblog.com. I actually just published a post with cheer practice theme ideas. Who doesn't need more of those? So check out the cheermomblog.com. There's all kinds of free stuff, things that you can download. And then, of course, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. You can always drop me a message, leave me a comment there, and I would love to interact with you and hear about what's going on with you, your cheerleader, just life in general as a cheer mom. And again, if I haven't said it enough, thank you for your reviews. Thank you for your ratings. Please keep leaving them. All right, here is my talk with amazing business owner, CFO, cheer coach, mother wife extraordinaire, Kristen Rosario.
All the moms in the world, let's chat it up. We're talking competitions, uniforms, and all of the above. It's the Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Mom, yes, the Cheer Mom podcast. Cheer Moms, your podcast is on.
The holidays are right around the corner, but there's never a better time to shop than any time when you're a cheer mom, right? When you're a mom. Duh. So if you haven't checked it out, visit thecheercollection.com. It's beautiful cheer themed jewelry with quotes that are specific to us, like hit zero. And now we have cheer mom, coach, base, flyer, backspot, and more. So check it out. We have rings, bracelets, necklaces, and if you enter the code CheerMomPod at checkout, you'll get 10% off. Thecheercollection.com. Get it for a cheer enthusiast that you love today. Okay, welcome to the Cheer Mom podcast. I am extra excited. I feel like I say that every time, but extra excited today. I have been anticipating this interview. I'm here with, first of all, my name twin. We're both named Kristen, so just get that out of the way. It's Kristen and Kristen. We both spell our names the right way and everything, so we had an instant connection here. I am so excited to introduce Kristen Rosario, owner of Top Gun Cheer, one of the coaches of TGLC, which I know is a lot of people's favorite team. I'm a fan. Kristen, welcome, 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 welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, thanks for taking the time to join us, even after we had some technical difficulties to get started. So I appreciate your persistence and patience. And we've even been talking off the air just to kind of get to know each other. This is the first time that we've met, virtually, and so we were just kind of getting to know each other. And I was like, oh my gosh, there were things that I just kind of wanted to know because I've always been curious about the way that you do things over at Top Gun, and just to listen to you talk about the culture of your program, I was like, okay, we got to put this in the interview. So let's get started. First, let's talk about how you got into cheer. What's your background?
Okay, well, first I wanted to say I apologize in advance to anybody who's listening in. I am a mom first, so we are at my home. So if you hear any background noise, I just want to apologize because life is still going on, unfortunately.
She has her kids like helping with housework. It's amazing. Tell us how you do that too.
Well, it's not always easy. It's kind of after the yelling of if you don't pick up your
Okay,
clothes.
okay. So you're normal like us.
Oh, 100%. 100%. So how I got into cheer is actually very interesting. I was a ballet dancer my whole life, basically. And in high school, I was in a dance class and I had a friend who danced with me who's a cheerleader. He, yes, I did say he, was also a very good friend to Victor's. So he asked me one day, he's like, would you want to come to my cheer practice? I'm like, yeah, that's really cool. I'd love to watch. Like, when I was little, I always wanted to kind of do something like that. I ended up getting into dance instead. So I went to his practice. Me and Victor met, instantly hit it off. We started dating probably like a month or two later. And he actually taught me how to stunt. And since I had really good balance from ballet, it was really easy. I had great body positions. And so I instantaneously fell in love with cheerleading and Victor. And before you know it, the following season, I was on the team. So I cheered my junior and senior year of high school, and then followed by my 4 years of college, and then got married to Victor right after. But funny enough, my first year of college, literally right out of high school, I was 17 and he was 18. We started talking. So
wow.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We joke, we say that we were the first gym with multiple locations because it was this park and this park where we practiced. So we had two locations because on, Tuesdays we practiced out of this park. And then when they kick us out of there, Thursdays we'd go to the other park. So, but yeah, so we did that for a few years until, we finally got our own facility and took it from there. But yeah, so that's kind of how I got started. It was really Victor's fault.
Well, and we were even talking about you guys have won. I think I counted 19 world championships, and when I asked you, I love your response to that because you don't really keep track.
No, I'm gonna trust you on the 19. It's an ongoing joke in my gym that I'm the numbers lady who doesn't keep track of numbers, but I think it's because I am constantly dealing with numbers that I forget phone numbers, I forget birthdays, because to me, numbers are just like a constant random moving thing, right? That's the first thing. And the second thing is, to be honest with you, I feel that you're only as good as your season. So I've made it kind of a point to, hey, we're all starting brand new from scratch again. So we're all at zero right now. And that's just kind of how I live my life. Some people are different. Like my husband is honestly the thesaurus of cheerleading, like not just us, any gym, you ask him, what year did so-and-so do the routine with, the I've got legs song? And he's like, oh, that was 1943. And I'm like, okay, Victor. So I guess we're like a good yin and yang for that. But yeah, no, I'm going to trust you that it's 19. That I think that's what the number is. But that doesn't matter as much as the stories that come with it.
That's amazing. And you guys are so innovative and groundbreaking, and that shouldn't surprise me now that I know that you started really at the ground level before All-Star Cheer was even a thing. But you are just, it seems to me, I don't even want to say head and shoulders above. You're just like over here. You're in like a different arena, I feel like, in terms of creativity. And where does that inspiration and innovation come from?
Well, first of all, thank you. I think we've always said that we're not going to make our routines dictated by the score sheet. Unfortunately, sometimes that hurts us because, the score sheet ultimately decides who the winners are. But we've always wanted to inspire other people. So we've always said if the dad who has no idea what cheerleading is about doesn't stand up and go, that's the winner, that's the routine, then we've done something wrong. And that's kind of how we've lived our lives. The truth is, I cannot take credit. Victor has an amazing mind. He's just brilliant. Like I don't say it because he's my husband, because just like everybody else, there's moments that as a wife I'd love to kill him. He's got this creative genius to him, and I truly am the yin to his yang. He sometimes tells me that because I challenge him, it makes him more creative, because I'll be like, well, but how do you do that and put a spin on it? Or how do you, and then every once in a while I'll have an idea and I'll throw it at him and he'll be like, yes, let's do that. But I think I'm more like the cleaner. Once he like comes up with an idea, he'll be like, what do you think? And I'm like, I love it. Now we're gonna make it look right. And then we'll like clean it. But I can't take like I said, full credit. I do believe it's a good partnership, and he's got a brilliant mind.
I love that philosophy of if the dad who doesn't know what cheerleading is, because that is my husband. He knows what cheerleading is, but he doesn't know any of the technical stuff. And, he kind of shows up 15 minutes before and's like, what team are they again? And he actually got to go to Worlds with us this last season. And he was right there. Like we didn't drag him, but we were like, okay, come on, we're gonna go, we're gonna watch the big teams, we're gonna watch Large Coed, and he's like, okay, whatever. And by the time he had seen TGLC, he was the one who was standing up, going, what time do they perform tomorrow? Because I want to see. And he's like, now he's a fan.
Thank you.
So mission accomplished.
That's what I love to hear. Well, to tell you a funny story. So, I realized how much that was so important to us the day that Victor goes to me, okay, we got second. We've lost many times before. We got second, we're at Worlds. And he says to me, do me a favor, pull up YouTube. And we're, both sitting in our sadness. And I pull up YouTube and he goes, how many hits did we get? And I said, looks like, this is the day after Worlds. I go, it looks like 10,500. He goes, pull up for first place. How many hits did they get? I go, looks like about 6,300. He goes, then we won. We won. Because ultimately that's what matters. Like, are we inspiring people? Are they wanting to watch our routine again? Then we won. You know what I mean? So that's
I love it. Yeah. It's one of the teams that I pull up when people go, well, cheer, isn't that just like cheering on the football team? I'm like, well, let me pull this up and I will show you. And TGLC is always one of the teams that I pull up, and you go, you watch this and you tell me that it's not a sport.
Thank you. Best compliment you could ever give us.
Oh, I'm so glad. Okay, so successful coach, successful teams, and you have more than world teams. You have many summit teams, multiple locations. You coach a lot of kids. So I really want to get into and talk about a successful coach-parent relationship, because I think that can get sticky. I think it can get emotional, but it can also be very successful, and it can be I'm friends, my daughter she just graduated from Allstar cheerleading, but I still keep in touch with many of her coaches that she's had throughout the years. So I think that those can be long-term relationships. And from a parent's perspective, a coach isn't just teaching my kid, and I know everyone knows this, but a coach isn't just teaching my kid how to perfect a skill. They're teaching them life lessons and relationships and how to talk with people. So I really want to talk about that. And you mentioned, before we hit record, you mentioned the culture that you create at your gym. Tell me a little bit about that, because I asked about when we see Top Gun athletes, especially those Worlds athletes, walking through a venue, I have never seen a negative thing said about them. They stop, they talk to the little kids, they take pictures. They are so outgoing and so nice. So tell me about how you've created that culture at your gym.
So, well, that was a lot of questions at once. I'm going to hit them at once.
Yes. Yeah.
I wanted to first say that with our daughters, one of the blessings is that we have a great coaching staff, and up until they were old enough, they never were coached by Victor and myself. So they literally got to go level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, like literally all the way through. And we'll talk about that later when you ask me about the process. But that's kind of how we were lucky enough. They were already such great coachable athletes by the time they reached us, that it made it such a seamless transition, because it wasn't about mom and dad coaching me. It was, this is my next year's coach. And that's just kind of how, the same way they would have respected their coaches, they kind of respected us. So I honestly have to give all the credit for that to my staff. As far as the culture, and this is one of the things that I think makes it easier as well. Easier, and also it can sometimes be harder, because when kids do leave and graduate and go off to colleges or different places, we've created this culture within our gym that sometimes they're expecting, and now they go to college and they're like, it's totally different, Coach Kristen. It's not like an extended part of my family. Now it's just like really like, you know, this is what I do, and then I go to school, and it's different. People don't call me to ask me how I'm feeling today. And so we try to really build a family atmosphere. Yes, we coach the kids. Yes, I would be lying to you if I told you that sometimes we didn't need to give them tough love, but it's kind of like raising a family. And the same way that I would be tough on my kids, like I told you earlier, your laundry has been adding up for the last week. Do you think it's going to make its way upstairs anytime soon, girls? Is the same way that we coach the kids. And so when they need us to hug and tell them that things are going to be all right, we hug and tell them things are going to be all right. And when they need us to be hard on them and tell them, listen, it's not okay that, you know, true story, last year I got a phone call from the principal of one of my athletes' schools. And the principal said this was the number that they gave me as their emergency contact. And I said, I know exactly why. I said that the reason is because I'm probably going to be harder on them than their parent is right now. And, you know, one of our kids got in trouble at school, and I was hard on him and benched him for a week and said, you know, unfortunately, until you get your grades up, this is going to be the way it is, and sat him on the sideline. And so we do try to treat them like family. I mean, from the moment that they walk in the door, the people at the front desk are greeting you. Our kids, we learned a long time ago, I was kind of mentioning earlier, that the best chemistry is, you know, after kids have spent some time together, they build this like little bond. And so normally that would happen by the time you go to your first camp or your first competition and they're away together. But unfortunately, by that point, you're, you know, 4 months into a season, and, you know, we realized, God, wouldn't it be great if we could fast forward and fast track that and get them to bond earlier. And so we've implemented things in our gym. One of them being, you know, the older kids are supposed to kind of take the newer kids under their wings. And just yesterday, I was talking to one of my athletes who was like, asking me, so how are you liking your experience? He's like, oh my God, it's been fantastic. I'm loving everything. And I said, you know, how are you gelling with the team? And he said, honestly, from the moment I walked in the door and people greeted me, and he's like, you know, you're at the front desk still. He's like, I would have never imagined that the person who runs, you know, all the locations would be sitting here greeting me. And as I walked through the door, he said, but then I went out into the floor, and he's like, and I met the whole team. He's like, I know everybody's name, because I remember last year, even 5 and 6 months into my season, that I couldn't remember some of the kids on my team. And I said, well, that's a shame. He goes, and I realize that now. He goes, I should have taken the initiative. He goes, it was just not the culture. He's like, here, the first thing you did is sit us down and say, all right, learn the person to your right, learn the person to your left. Tell me something about them that you don't know by the time this next 5 minutes are over. And then, you know, you rotate and you learn something about somebody new. And just little things like that. It seems like it takes away time from practice, but in the long run, you're saving yourself so much time because they're learning each other and connecting very early.
So you said something in there about coachable kids. What do you think makes an athlete coachable?
A very interesting question. So for me, I believe attitude is everything. I tell my kids all the time, if you want to assure yourself a spot on this team, it's not about the skills you have when you walk through the door, it's about the attitude. Your skills made the team. Now you have to make the floor. And so attitude, I truly believe that the kind of kid who nods their head, listens to the correction you give them, and tries to apply it, listen, sometimes it takes kids years to learn how to technically get something right. And I'm here to be patient. But if you're giving that effort, I will be behind you 100% of the way, constantly giving you corrections and helping you get there. I always tell kids, if I've stopped giving you a correction, that's when you worry. That's because I've given up on you. Because usually a kid I've given up on, every time I give them a correction, I get the, yeah, but it's okay to fail. It's okay not to be perfect. I fail daily. It took us 7 years to find the building you're standing in right now. I tell the kids, 7 years. You know how many times I failed? In those 7 years, I must have seen 1,000 buildings that did not work, or we did not get approved for, or the failure is part of success. And without the failure, you don't enjoy the success. So that's kind of the way that we try to look at it. And if kids are giving us excuses, and I know that a lot of times, like I tell them, I'm not disappointed in you. I'm super proud of you. So if I'm giving you this correction, nod your head and go, got it. She likes me. She's proud of me. She wants me to be better. And when I kind of retrain their brains that way, a lot of times it makes it easier for them to be coachable, if that makes sense.
I love that. I love that. Thank you. Okay, so let's talk about parents. And I always laugh because it's like, man, I think cheer would be so much easier if us parents just didn't get involved, right?
Not necessarily.
You don't have to answer that. You don't have to answer that.
No. Honest to God. We got to where we are because of the support of the parents, right? So I don't necessarily agree with all of that. I love when the parents support us for the positive things. And I would love to have the parents involved always for the positive things. Where the waters get a little murky sometimes is, and I get it. Listen, I have 2 children. When we're dealing with somebody's most prized possessions, you want the best for your child.
Yeah.
Sometimes parents don't realize that the best for their child may not always be leveling up or being in a different team. And that's what gets hard, because as a parent, you think that constantly pushing your child is the best, but then we have things like mental blocks and other things like that happen. And from our 30 years of experience, I don't want to make the face of, oh gosh, if parents stayed out of the way. No, not at all. I love parents to be in the way, helping us with the positives, as long as they're in agreement with what the positives are.
Right. Yeah. So let's talk about that, managing expectations. So at the time of this interview, we're just coming out of kind of the tryout season, and most teams are already formed, and kids have been placed. But even in competition season, what advice would you give to parents to manage expectations around things like team placement for their athlete, and then team placement at a competition?
So, and don't laugh when I say the trust the process, but sadly, sometimes you do have to trust the process. You have to have faith that the people that you are paying, because they are the best in the industry, usually know what's the best. Like, you would think, with as many titles that we've won, I don't know again what that number is, that people would be like, okay, well, they know what they're doing. Let me not question them. I assure you, we always get questioned. I assure you that we still have no idea what we're doing, according to some. But at the end of the day, what I will say is this, especially in the evaluation time, do people make mistakes? Absolutely. You're asking our staff, for instance, to look at all of these children in sometimes a week or, a weekend, and to place them all according to, what they think is best. And sometimes you've only known these kids for 3 days. When I say trust the process, what I mean is give us time to learn your child if we don't. Give us time to figure it out. Give us time to, if it's wrong, make it right. But at the same time, understand that if you place your child somewhere, there may have been a need. Just because Susie throws a back tuck, or just got a back tuck, or has worked all year long to finally nail that back tuck, doesn't mean that emotionally or performance-wise, she'll be ready to throw that back tuck with 14 other kids throwing it at the same time, all traveling in different directions, and that emotionally, it's a good place for her if she's going to be in the back, because she just learned it, right? So sometimes trust the process means that we're looking at more than just your child's skills. Um, Sometimes it also means we're looking at what's going to help them grow and develop emotionally. We're looking at, is that age appropriate? Can we put that child on that team? They may have the skills, but she's still talking about Barbies, and the other one over here is not talking about Barbies. You know what I mean? Those kind of things. We try to look at it, and I know that for our gym, it's sometimes difficult because we do try to look at the full package of the child and the athlete, not just what skills they offer. But in addition to that, we also look at not just the tumbling, but what do they offer stunt wise? And that's where it gets, I think, sometimes very difficult because people will say, well, my kid threw a tuck and yours just threw that handspring. Yep, you're right. And unfortunately, in this world, we need way more back spots and bases than we need flyers. And so we have to pull a kid that may not have had that tuck or may not have, just like in the best way for me to explain it is in baseball, everybody might be a hitter, but not everybody's going to be a shortstop. And a team without a shortstop is a team that's in trouble, right? Or, you know, I might be that specialist on a basketball team that can nail those 2-pointers every time. Well, everybody can, but now we have nobody that can hit some 3-pointers, right? So those kind of things, when you're putting together a team, sometimes it's hard to understand the big picture. And it's funny that 1 or 2 times that we've made the mistake of going, okay, all of these kids have the skills. We're going to put them all together. Let's just, you know, make the parents happy. Then we do it and we arrive. And this is the biggest part of trust the process. We arrive to practice and now we have 23 flyers and 4 bases, and the team will be not even remotely a success. And then the parents who were initially so happy that their kids made this team that they were hoping they would make, now are yelling at you on the back end because it was the worst teams performance-wise in the history of Top Gun, right? So understanding that we're in this together, that we want for your children to succeed. Under no circumstances have I ever woken up and said today, you know what, Cynthia's worked really hard, but I just want to mess with her. So I'm going to keep her down a level because I'm just a nut like that. Like, never in my life. On the contrary, when kids succeed, there are successes as well. Like, we're like, yes, she learned that here. Like, it's such a wonderful feeling, you know? So I guess trust the process means let's get through it together. Trust that we're trying to do the best that we can to love your kids and love on them. Despite that, I know that you may have spent 5 years worth of private lessons to get that skill. I promise you that in another year, that skill's only going to be better.
Love it. Love that. That's bravo. That's what I think trust the process should be. It's not just trust us, we know what we're doing, but give us time. And you hit it on the head for me because I always tell cheer parents who reach out to me with questions about, well, she didn't get placed where she should have. And it's like, give it, the cheer season is a year long. And I have never seen a season finish the same way that it started, even when it comes to my own personal athlete. There was a season where I really thought she should have been on a higher level, and but I said, you know what, we're just gonna wait and see, and we're gonna go in for more private lessons, and we're gonna let them know that you're available. And sure enough, they're like, oh, we didn't know that she was open to doing 2 teams. Here, what, we needed her on this team to be a strong base, but now that we know she's available, let's work on those skills to get her to cross over. And by competition season, by December, she was crossing over to that next level up. So I always use that story to say it's never the same, sometimes even week to week. And
I will say,
give it time.
I will say, absolutely. And even with my own children. So keep in mind that for many years, like I said, I didn't coach them. So I got to just watch, where the process led. Right. And I was kind of like the reverse of, the crazy parent, as some people would call them. I wouldn't call them that. I would say the involved parent. My staff used to tease me. I would be like, no, Demi's not ready. Please keep her on level 2. And they would look at me and go, what? And I guess because I knew the more she leveled up, the closer she was getting, right, to me coaching her, right? So maybe that was half it. But no, honestly, I felt that they, in all fairness, they truly enjoyed the lower levels more. To tell you a really funny story, both Demi and Jody were on our level 1 team when they were on our level 5 team at the same time, because they enjoyed it they enjoyed it so much that they would beg me, can I please double team to level 1? Because when you took that pressure off of them and they just got to perform and have a good time, it was like, I love this cheerleading. So we would keep them on a lower level so that they would keep the love for it. So when people ask me all the time, how did your kids go through 15, 16 years of cheerleading and still love it? Like, how did they not fall out of it?
Mm-hmm.
Because they always stayed in love by doing the lower levels. It was still fun for them. So they had those pressure situations with the upper levels, but then they got to just enjoy. Like, why would I not want that, right? With our mini team, I think back then it probably ended like when you were like 7 or 8, right? You could no longer be on the mini team. My daughters cried. Both of them were already on level 3 and were still crossing over to our mini level 1 team. When they aged out, they both cried because they enjoyed that team so much.
I love it. So let's switch gears. So what do you think parents should look for in a coach? And what do you think coaches need from parents to have a successful relationship?
Honestly, communication and willingness to listen, because I can speak, but I'm not always being heard, if that makes sense. So I have a great group of parents that when they come in and they sit down and talk to me, and I explain to them, it might also be because I'm very honest with them. And I'll tell them, listen, you know, we need your daughter to learn how to base. If our future hope is for her to one day end up on a world's team, then we need to make her well-rounded. Or we need your daughter to focus on her technique because she's got all the skills. She's a nut and she loves to bounce off the walls, and that's fantastic. She has no fear, but she also doesn't pay attention to the details, right? If I can say those things and a parent go, okay, I hear you. How can you help me work on this? And we'll put a plan of action together, right? Now we're communicating and we're working together. And so, and I'm all about that. Like, I'm all about having the parents involved in our process when it comes to let's do what's best together. Where I think I shy away from it is when a parent will come in and go, well, I just don't understand. My daughter should be on this team because she's a great flyer and she can fly all those skills at that level. I don't disagree. However, is she age appropriate? Will I be setting her up for future failure because we're putting her under a pressure situation where older kids are going to be mean to her because she might still have that little girl bent knee syndrome, right? So let's work together. So what I need from parents, I would say, is communication. Let's communicate through it and be willing to listen. And what I think, I apologize, I told you, real home.
Okay.
But what I think a parent should look for in a coach is honesty, compassion, but also that your children fear them just a little bit. Not in the wise of, I'm terrified of practice. Not that at all. Your children should not fear their coach in that wise. In the wise of, my athletes at 19 tower me sometimes. But when one of their parents says, I'm going to call Coach K and tell her that you got to see, they're like, please don't. Please don't. In that wise. It's the fear/respect factor is what I'm at. The same way that, you know, a child would be scared to tell their parent they did something wrong, the same kind of fear. It's that respect of, oh gosh, I know I failed and I need to do better, that kind of fear.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, Kristen, for your wisdom and your time. This has been so enlightening, and I'm so glad that I got to talk with you and visit with you, and I know that so many parents will benefit from this.
Well, all I can say is thank you so much for having me.